Hello, welcome to Southern Health Podcasts. Today I have the pleasure in speaking to Jane Tibble, who is our Triangle of Care lead at Southern Health. Jane, welcome to our podcast today. Would you like to just take some time to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi Sarah, my name's Jane Tibble. I'm the Triangle of Care lead and I work in the patient public engagement team.
And Jane, I'm delighted to say that Southern Health have recently just been awarded 2 stars for a Triangle of Care accreditation. Congratulations to you and your team, fantastic achievement. Can you just tell us a bit about what does that mean for Southern Health?
The congratulations go to all our services in adult mental health, older persons mental health, our forensic services, our learning disabilities and our CAMS units. The first 2 stars do concentrate on our mental health services. And the year before last, was it 2021? At the end of 2021, we got our first star. And that was all the inpatient wards in those teams I've just mentioned, completed the first assessment. And that's how the accreditation process works in the Triangle of Care with the Carers Trust. So they completed their first assessment. And then earlier this year, all of the community teams in those services and the inpatient teams had to do a reassessment, completed their self-assessment against the 6 Triangle of Care principles. So they had to fill in a really detailed self-assessment, and action plan comes out of that to show where they have to make improvements going forward. There wasn't a huge, there was a big difference. So the Carers Trust could see the difference we'd made in that year to 18 months between the 2 stars. So it's that process to show that we're really starting to recognise and value the support and work in partnership with the families and friends who support our service users.
So can you just explain very briefly what Triangle of Care is, Jane?
The Triangle of Care membership scheme is designed to improve service delivery, highlight good practice, ensure consistency of care involvement across an organisation. So our organisation is Southern Health. Build partnership between statutory and third sector organisations, and build a care inclusive whole family network approach to care. So it's all about identifying and supporting the family, friends, neighbours who support our service users.
So how does the Trust get that Triangle of Care accreditation?
The Triangle of Care is a framework that we're following in Southern Health with the Carers Trust. It's an accreditation process based on 6 principles, and it's all about identifying, recognising, working with the family, friends who support patients and service users. It's making sure that all our staff are aware of the importance of recognising and working with the families and friends who support our patients, providing training. We talk about obviously consent and sharing information and referring to our policies, but also not seeing that as a barrier. Listening to people does not breach confidentiality. We still see that in the feedback, sadly, but not very often anymore. Having carers leads in each team across Southern Health who become part of the network, but they are the influencers, the ambassadors for all things Triangle of Care carers in their teams. Making sure we have a care introduction to the service. So we've got the carers booklet in Southern Health, but what other information can teams provide as that introduction? It's about having that phone call, starting building that relationship with them, and then having a pool of resources about a range of carer support that's available within Southern Health, but also outside of the Trust with the Carers Trust, Carers Together, and Over Mine, Princess Royal Trust for Carers. There are so many. That's what the Triangle of Care is about. It's all about making sure we work with identifying support carers, families and friends, to make sure that we support them as much as we can, but we also look out for them. Carer wellbeing, burnout is real. So it's about trying to do everything we can do in Southern Health to help and support the family and friends who support our service users.
And I know, having worked with you before, we've got carer support workers in the Trust as well, haven't we?
We've got carers support workers, carers liaison workers and carers peer support workers across Southern Health. So they are paid roles. I think there's about 24 now, and they're proving really, really valuable. But the majority of our carers leads do it as an extra job role, and they're also the influencers.
And so what does a carers lead do then within the Trust?
The carers leads are the champions for all things carers and triangular care related. So they're the point of contact for each team across Southern Health. They are the ones that are influencing everything that we do. So they will, ensure all the team getting trained, obviously with the service lead and team leaders. They will make sure there's carers booklets available. They'll look at the carers communication plans and influence completion of those. Obviously identifying carers first is the main thing. The importance of working with them. They will join the Carers Lead network and share their experiences, but they really are mainly the champion roles influencing all things carers. We'll always ask for carers to share stories because the carer storytelling events are really, really valuable, and we learn a lot from them.
It's interesting you said that you learn a lot from the stories that carers tell. So how do you take their experience and use it? So what difference do these carers make?
We learn from carers about what doesn't work so well with regard to engaging with them or not engaging with them for service users to help with service users' care. We can find out from the care stories about what really does work well, what helps and support them, and how we can kind of tailor our approach to working with them to make those three key stakeholders in triangular care really, really work together. So patients, staff, and the carers, families and friends. Then following our recent carer story event during Carers Week, one carer listening to another carer story asked a question, have you grieved for the changing relationship that person was going through? And when we all thought about that, when due to somebody's health condition, if the relationship changes, they brought up grief, like grieving for that changing relationships. So thinking about it and having some discussions throughout the trust, we're going to look at some education for staff, for carers, families and friends and service users if they want it. And I think we can all identify with those changing relationships and they do have an impact. So I thought that was a really good. It was quite hard to hear, I think, and I think that at the session. But yeah, let's do some education around that. Let's see what we can do to help everybody, really, with that.
So you're listening to what carers' experiences are and then tailoring to a certain extent, based on their experience, what support and we can offer them. Or even if it's just recognition that, as you said, the relationship has changed. Yeah, because I remember when we interviewed Sandra, who's one of our carers, she was speaking about how her relationship with her husband had changed. You know, she was a wife originally and now she's become a carer as well, and what a difference that makes in their relationship and how she's potentially grieving the loss of her husband that she used to know. So
that's just one example, but there are many, and like 3 carers recently been working on the hospital discharge project as well. So really, really getting carers, families and friends involved. We've also got our family carers and friends group that meets every 6 weeks. And we're always looking for new people to join that so they can also get involved and feedback on things that we're doing in Southern Health, because working with people in co-production with them is the best thing we can do for everybody.
Jane, you talk about carers becoming involved in carers groups that the Trust run and maybe some of the projects that we run as well to have an influence on how we deliver our services. How can they get in touch with Southern Health?
We've got the people.participation@southernhealth.nhs.uk email address. We've got our carers and patient support hub as well. Their information can be found on our trust website. You can contact me at carer.involvement@southernhealth.nhs.uk. We can get in contact with them. Also, all the teams should know how to make contact with us as well and share that information with our family, friends and carers. Yeah, there's a lot of feedback we get in Southern Health, and really let's look at the compliments that we get. It shows we can see how much good work that there is going across Southern Health from all our services about how they work with the families and friends who support our service users. And when you see that feedback, it's really good. And there's still some things where we need to do better across the Southern Health. If we look at our concerns and our complaints, communication is still an issue. And I think if that's one thing I'd like to see is that communication, consent to share is not a barrier with conversations with carers, families and friends, and that they are identified and included, because that will really help a long, long way.
And I think that's what the difference has been. The approach that we have towards carers now is we're listening to the feedback, we're able to make some informed decisions and advice to our staff about how to manage the relationships with carers, aren't we?
Yeah, and when those relationships, when our teams or carers leads will let us know about that, we can bring those carers to come and share their stories, like we've heard from a few in Carers a Week this year, and they would be invited to join our Carers, Families and Friends group and get involved even more. And most of that's come up from having good feedback and working with people, and then wanting to get really, really involved, as well as people who've had not so great experiences wanting to change things in Southern Health. And that's really, really valuable for us. Learning from feedback, whatever it is so valuable.
Because you can't do anything unless you know about it, can you?
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that we've got a carers group, and that we heard from a carers storytelling session during Carers Week. And earlier this year, I had the pleasure of speaking to not only you, Jane, but also to Ben and Sandra about the work that Southern Health are doing. So Ben's a carer support worker and Sandra's a carer that has been supported by Ben. And just take a listen to some of the excerpts from that podcast now.
Understand what the triangle of care means, because again, people might find that a bit jargony. Understand what that actually means, which is that you play as an equally important part in the care of your loved one as the service does. And one of the things that, I don't know, it was Jane, I think, said, I'm with my loved one, 24/7. You see them for 10 minutes every couple of months. So I do know a lot of things about them that could help you understand their condition better. So please listen to what I have to say, and don't just placate me, but take it on board as equally important. And let's be partners in the caring relationship, really.
Thank you, Sandra. And Ben, what advice would you give to someone like Sandra?
Really, it's that message. Sandra's talked about the value of the input from carers, families and friends, and also the importance of you as a carer, the importance of the role that you play, but your importance as somebody who's an individual who also needs to be looked after.
Yeah, no, I'm just grateful that the service is there, and it was good for me, has been. So I thank Ben for all the support he's given me.
Yeah, and it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure working with Sandra. So it's been great.
I was really pleased they linked their stories to Triangle Care as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jane, you talk about carers, families and friends and neighbours. Is this just for adults really, or do we find that we have young carers as well?
Yeah, please look out for young carers because they can be hidden, and we've got a great story with Solent University video called Dylan's Story, so please listen to that. So if you can link to that as well, that'd be great. But there are young people out there caring for, whether it's siblings or parents or even grandparents. They may be struggling with things a lot more, missing out, being tired. I think one thing that shone through with Dylan's story was how he's disturbed at night by his brother who can't help it. But how tired he must be, and how that could affect possibly his education, his life as a young person. So it's really important that we recognise and support them. For instance, we've got the Hampshire Young Carers Alliance, and there's a website. It's the hyca.org.uk website, for instance, but there's other help and support out there, and that information is always shared with our carers leads as well, so that we can share that widely with people.
And I think sometimes it's hard for young carers to actually talk about their experience, particularly if they're still if they're attending school. And so, what advice would you give to either a parent or a young carer themselves if they find themselves struggling with caring?
is really talk and listen, and also signpost people for support. Check with any of the services that are providing care to the person the young carer supports, but also please contact the Young Carers Alliance and other agencies. Talk to a teacher at school. There's young carers groups. And carers will say it's really good to attend groups like that because you're talking to somebody who understands. That's even more important for a young person. We have Young Carers Day, which is always in March every year, and I remember listening to an interview with a young carer on the news, and the question was asked, what 2 things would you like to say to society that would help you? The first one was to listen to me. Young carers feel they're not listened to because of their age, despite their expert, again, with that lived experience, and should be recognised. The second thing she said was to be kind to me. Now, when anybody says that, it hits home, but when a young person, I think this person was about 10, says it just hit me in the heart, really. So be kind, recognise for them and help and support them as much as we can. Really include them, involve them. They want to be included. They do equally tough, even tougher sometimes, jobs to support the people that they help.
So true to look out for our young carers as well. So Jane, what's next?
In a few weeks' time, we'll be launching the Triangle Care e-learning so that it's accessible for everybody who works across Southern Health. We want to get everybody trained in the Triangle Care principles. It's going to be about 30 minutes. It's really, I've had good feedback before we launch it as well, so that's really, really good. So we just, please, can everybody, if you're frontline, whatever your role, receptionist, non-clinical, you're speaking to patients, you're speaking to their families and friends, you support them, but everybody, medical, clinical, allied health professional, non-clinical, if you liaise with people, please complete the Triangle Care training and make that objective for your teams.
And how can they do that, Jane? Is that going to be e-learning online, or is it?
It'll be e-learning. As soon as it's ready, we're just finishing it off now, it'll be launched, and we'll let all the carers leads know by me, but bulletins and everything else, we'll be talking about it.
So if there's one thing you take away from this podcast today, is to find out about that training on Triangle of Care, encourage your teams to go on it as well, so that we can further improve the partnership working that we do with carers, families and friends for the benefit of the service users. So Jane, with regard to Triangle of Care, you've got 2 stars now. Is there a 3rd star we can get?
There is a 3rd star, and we're going to start planning for that 3rd star towards the end of the year. And for this star, we bring in all our services across Southern Health, so all our physical health services. Really looking forward to getting them involved with the Triangle Care self-assessments. But don't panic, everybody. We have got time to complete this, and we're starting to planning towards the end of the year. And I'll be in touch with teams, with the carers leads, and obviously via the divisional leads as well, when it's time to launch that. And we'll help and support you all the way.
How exciting. So that basically means that at the moment all our mental health services, whether it's inpatients or community, have helped contribute to the accreditation of the Triangle of Care membership, which is fantastic news, and that we're going to be working towards star 3, which is for our physical health teams as well. Jane, thank you so much for talking to me today. It's so interesting talking to you about carers, and so a big thank you to you and your team, and again congratulations on achieving that 2nd star for the Triangle of Care, and good luck with the 3rd. I can't wait to talk to you about the 3rd one.
Thanks, Sarah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
If you're interested in any aspects of what we've been talking about on the podcast today, please visit our website www.southernhealth.nhs.uk, where you can find more about the service that we offer carers, and also how to become a carer support worker.